The access.
You know, it is a circle, you know. Right next to it at the bottom.
Well, I know I got
Right
this one.
there.
But you know what? I'm out.
Maybe.
The video we might, okay, we're just gonna have to go without video for this one, so sorry about that. Okay.
Thanks.
No problem. Okay, let's
Good
go.
job. Thanks.
No problem. See you guys later.
Don't leave town.
Okay, we're gonna continue on, folks, with our town council meeting. Order pledge allegiance, roll call is completed. Because this is a special meeting, we did not list consent of and agenda meetings. That'll be on our next meeting. I don't remember the date. Declaration of conflict of interest. Any conflict of interest?
No.
Nope. No. Mayor's town updates, we're gonna skip mayor's town updates. Public hearing opening for fiscal year 21 budget adjustments. I'm leaving that here, sorry. Let's go. We're gonna move line item 5 up so that the Travis Wells group does not have to sit through all the budget items. Mr. Wells, everybody has in their packets the changes made between the two attorneys. Mr. Wells.
So, Mr. Mayor, my name is Craig Carlisle. I'm joining you by video. I'm the lawyer for the applicant. If you got any questions for us, I think we've worked out all of the details on the agreement, and you've got that in your hand. I've worked with Mr. Halls.
Well, I think there's a couple of clarifications. I did get some comments on this. Ooh, what up there? Wow. Can you, Marty, is that you too, or just him? It's just him that's frozen. Marty doesn't.
Not me.
Yeah, you're good. We can hear you fine. It's the attorney that we lost.
One from last.
We've lost you. Sounds like you're frozen there. My screen's frozen.
Everybody was looking for.
Okay, we're gonna move on, go on, address some items without you then until you see if you get unfrozen. We received some phone calls on this from residents. I think they misunderstood.
Okay, go ahead. I can hear that. I'm not frozen on this end.
If you could hear us, if you could hold up for just 1 second, Rich. Okay. One of the misconceptions that I think has been called in on is that in our last meeting that we approved a 20-foot road as opposed to our standard 25-foot roads. It is currently a 25-foot road. It's just not calling for 25 foot of asphalt. Primarily, and the engineers here can attest to this, if you go the full width of 25 feet as asphalt, you leave no room for drainage on the side, so you end up creating erosion and undermine the asphalt. You okay with that? Or you want a further explanation of that?
No, that explains it.
Okay. So it is contingent upon, while it's not, they did provide us an exhibit in talking with legal. We felt it was best not to make it a part of the development agreement because it is part of the final plat construction drawing approval that needs to be signed off by our attorney, therefore not be a part of the development agreement. The other changes was obviously the 25 foot that we did, and then the time frame of bringing it down from 10 years to 2 years. I think that was the only questions. Anybody else have any challenges with it? Paul,
Well, I do. I feel like I still need to be at 25 foot. I mean, it measures 25 foot. Like our town ordinance is 26 foot. Fire code is 25 foot. And with that corner, I think we need to have 25 foot of road there.
well, you do have, I think what we're saying is that you don't have 25 feet of asphalt.
I don't see the problem with having 25 foot of asphalt. The only problem I saw if they're looking at it was the fire hydrants have to be moved, or that's going to be right in the middle of somebody hitting it or something like that. But
Okay,
as far as having 25 foot of asphalt, I don't see a problem with having 25 foot of asphalt. There's a ditch on the other side that needs to be taken care of.
and this is epitome of why we don't want to be part of this development agreement. It has to be part of the final plat construction drawings, assigned and approved by our engineer, and not as a document provided by their engineer.
Right, but I think the 20 foot needs to be taken out of there.
It is.
If we can get our 25, there's still 20 foot on the one that I read online, there was still 20 foot on it.
If you look at your ordinance on page 2, it says 25 feet.
In the parentheses, it says the 20 to 25 feet. Unless that's been changed on this packet,
No.
because I didn't get this packet in the email, so I went off of what was already off the information that was given to us a few days ago.
On the 21st, so he sent out an email with some of these concerns on there, and it does, while it does say developer agrees to construct and pave roadway on the existing city road with a 20 to 25 foot wide asphalt road for 1,150 feet. The developer shall install 25 feet of asphalt where the existing subgrade and road width support that width, but the width of the installed asphalt may be reduced from the necessary 25 if that turns out the case. But I think what I was trying to say was that the exhibit provided to us by their engineer is not what I wanted us to be held to. I wanted to be held to our engineer standard, which is 25 feet.
Well, I have a problem with 20 foot even being listed in there on that because of that, because then I can hold us to 20 feet on there that they come out and have an argument over whether it's 20 feet or 25 feet.
Well, there's no argument. If we don't sign off on the construction drawings, and our engineer doesn't sign off on it, then it'll be whatever he signs off on, whether they want 20 foot or not.
It also goes down, if you look a little bit further, it states that, but in no event shall the width of installed asphalt be less than 20 feet. And I just think that's pretty ambiguous that you're saying it's going to be 25 feet, yet there's 20 feet listed twice in there.
Well, here, and I agree with what you're saying, it says, the next sentence, if the developer intends to install less than 25 feet of asphalt on this section of the new road, pursuant to this paragraph, the developer shall develop an engineer report identifying those areas for review and approval by the town's engineer during the construction of the review process.
In our last meeting, we collectively said that we were good with that language, as long as it was contingent on our engineer.
That's why.
No, I agreed with Marty that we didn't agree on the 20 feet. Last meeting.
I didn't say 20 feet, I said the language that stated 20 to 25 feet in contingent, because it's contingent on the engineer, our engineer, not their engineer's final plat review and approval, based on what their field survey will show.
But it depends on what our engineer asked for. And, even in that meeting and the language that we had in this before, our engineer is saying that, yeah, if it's a 15-mile-an-hour curve, you can make it 14 or whatever that was feet wide, which is a single lane. And that's kind of ridiculous. So even though they're our engineers, they're going to be acquiescing to what we're kind of indicating that we're okay with. And if you're okay with 20 feet wide, they're going to say, yeah, that's fine at 20 feet then. And that's what we're trying to do, is get the language tighter because of what we've promised the community.
So we're gonna listen to the applicant.
Council, I want to talk on the engineering side, not the language side. We'll let the attorney address the language. So after the last meeting, for the record, I'm Craig Coates with Alliance Consulting, but we went and looked at what we could do. Now, if you want us to pave 25 feet, we could pave 25 feet and then you have no shoulder at all. And so with the existing road, it's 20 feet up the hill. And then once we get up on top, we already looked at the design. We did the 25 feet. It's just up that round, that's the hill. And then as soon as you turn that corner, it changes to 25 feet. we pushed it to 25 feet. It's just up that hill because of the road that's coming in. Now we can, I mean, we're not trying to get out of the 25 feet. It just isn't there. When we've measured it to put the shoulder and the road, you can't put both. So we said 20 feet and then have the 2.5 foot shoulder of base on the side. So that was the intent. Now, if you want us to just pave across the whole thing, then we'll do the 25 feet and just pave across the whole thing. The intent was to build the road like it's historically built with the asphalt and then the shoulders. And so we were trying to keep, I mean, it's just, we're going to be into the ditch that's against the hillside and we'll have to fill that in, and we're trying not to do that.
Well, I think we're gonna have the other problem to where if we only do 20 feet and then you have that footage on the side that's a shoulder, people are gonna be hitting the shoulder all the time, and it's gonna tear up the road for
Okay.
that. If it's 15 miles an hour and it's paved at 25 feet, you have the ditch. If the ditch is maintained and taken care of, then hopefully we can avoid that. Or if the town can, well, yeah, I still have a problem whether, regardless we say 20 feet, I have a problem with it being 20 feet, even at 15 miles an hour.
Okay.
Just because of the safety and concern for the public and for the people along the road, including your subdivision and the other residents that live on that road as well. Because I know, and most people in here know, that people aren't gonna do 15 miles an hour like that on the road. Or even with the sign there posted, people are gonna go past when they do. I live at the end of Cartland and they come around that corner at 50 miles an hour, going around that corner, then people crash off into the desert out there because they're going too fast around that corner. And I can see the same problem up here as everybody thinks, well, we have this corner and then you have asphalt. As soon as somebody goes around that too fast and they hit that shoulder you're talking about, they're gonna lose control. And I have a problem with that. Sure.
Okay. So would you rather it not paved and left as is, as current?
No, I'm just saying, I would like our language to have 25 foot in it, and then we come to terms of what it's gonna do. I'd like to see 25 foot.
So we would too, but the road's not set up currently as it sits with the current public road.
What is the width across there without squirting?
I went out and measured it. You've got close to your 25 foot.
Yeah.
Thing. If you go from the fire, you know where the fire hydrant is.
Yeah.
You can measure from the fire hydrant to the edge of where it drops off, 25 feet there. Okay, what he's talking about, it leaves no shoulder.
Right.
Yeah.
But to me, if you only pave 20 feet, you're gonna have people sliding off of that shoulder where there is no shoulder and it drops off. If you've got a slippery side, when it rains, that water's gonna come in, wash across that, and you're gonna have gravel and everything else across that road right there on that shoulder. Around that curve. I think they're better off, even as the way it sits, I think you're better off to pave 25 feet. And we do repairs, we have to do repair.
Well, we're not against, we've always wanted to pave it full width. It's
And
just, it
like
wasn't,
I said, the only problem I can see is that fire hydrant. Fire hydrant probably has to be moved.
well, that's,
Yeah, the fire hydrant's not a big deal. The fire hydrant's moved, and we put in the 25 feet of asphalt, then, I don't know, we just let the town make sure we're taking care of the ditches on that road, or make the fire take care of it as we go. Sorry.
It's not our, yeah, it's our road. It's not on somebody's property.
What do you think, Marty?
Paul and I, when we were out on that site, you know, when we went out on site with everybody present, I just remember, you know, the possibility was raised that we could dig back in that hillside and put 3 layers of blocks high to help retain that, to help give us the width that we're looking for. And at the time, you commented that you didn't feel like that would be asking too much to be able to, you know, cut it back that far, 3 blocks high, to help give us that extra tiny bit of width that we need to be able to make it a safer, you know. And we had I remember at the time, it seemed like you said we had 50-foot wide easement through there. So there wasn't an issue. So
Yeah, the width is there, absolutely, the width is there, Marty, to support that. The challenge was that when we went and did the layout, we didn't own the ground where the 3 blocks go. So we have to go to the upside where the fire hydrant is. We'd have to cut back into that hillside. And to get a 4-to-1 slope on that hillside, we go outside of our boundary again, but go in something else's property. So that's the only challenge with that. But yeah, it would support 3 blocks for sure.
That's how I feel, so I don't know how the rest of you feel on it, but.
Can't concrete that side in.
So,
Yeah.
so are we comfortable, like, we'll pave 25 feet, it's just, it's gonna cover the entire width of everything across there.
I'm not, because the engineers are stating that'd be detrimental to our hillside up there. So that's why I want.
No, I'm not saying cut the hill, I'm saying just pave all the way across it.
I understand. Our engineers are indicating if we went 25 feet, 26 feet up there and filled the wall to wall, that we would cause further erosion damage. And they don't want to do it without the asphalt. So I'm personally not comfortable with that either, because I don't want you to go for the sake of just getting your development, you know, go put in asphalt and then we have to turn around and fix it every 6 months. I don't want to inherit that problem. That's why I wanted the engineers to come up with a solution for this. And let our engineers come up with it. We have an existing subpar road that in today's standards would not be approved. It just wouldn't be. So where's the where's the give and take on the road? Where do we want it to be? Do we want it to be in maintenance, or do we want it to be in?
See, I don't know if we can afford it again, because, okay, so we got one development going in there. There's more land back there that can be developed. So we just kick it down the road and make the next guy, you know, build the improvements, so it's a safe road. I'm comfortable with that too, because
Yeah.
there's gonna be an awful lot of traffic up there, as developed out.
Okay. So really, it's not the development project we're having issues with, if I'm interpreting it right, it's the language of this 25 foot of asphalt, what to do there. On one hand, we pave the wall to wall. On the other hand, we pick up maintenance issues.
I think there's always gonna be maintenance issues. I mean,
That
you know,
hillside's
eventually
been a
it's
problem as long as I lived here. Cause I used to have to try to clean that culvert with the backhoe, it's a mess in there.
Well, one of the things we looked at was changing the grade up there and cutting to the hillside. And Marty, you and Paul, I think, were out there when the engineers were there and talked about that possibility and how it wasn't conducive with the other roads, dropping the grades down and recutting, that it would create even greater challenge. Myself, I'd like to just relocate the road, take it out tires and turn it in cul-de-sac at the bottom of the hill. You find another way off that mountaintop.
Say that again.
Well, the thing is,
I was saying if it were up to me personally, I'd stop the road at the bottom as a cul-de-sac because I think it's a bad hill. And I'd go on top of the middle of New Road somewhere else if that were possible, which is not. But that, let me restate that. It's not possible without the cooperation of other landowners willing to develop their land.
He's already submitted the secondary action, that's exactly where you're talking about.
No, it's not. So if it's a language issue, do we want to go 25 foot or do we want to let the engineers decide? I don't think we can ask that question. I don't think we can ask that question without being a word. Motion. That's the challenge. The two attorneys worked out the language to allow it to be decided by the engineers what was the best design up there. I think what we're saying is, do we not want to allow the engineers to do this and change it ourselves and just go to 25 feet? We can make that decision. For a motion.
Well, on this side, there'll be no place for water to go at all, so, yeah.
That's the concern about going 25 foot wide, is to force that down. And
That's why they don't.
my big concern is too, Mike, is let's just arbitrarily say we did go 25 feet and came all the way to the inside of the curve, which we would. Every one of us drive on asphalt right to the edge when we go around a curve. That just puts them that much closer to that fall off area. So that becomes problematic too.
Well, I think you can slope the road, so the drainage goes back to the drainage ditch, so you're not getting it to where it's sloughing off that side and washing that away. I think they can slope that curve to where that water stays away from running down off into that property on that lower end. And they could even if you had to put a, I don't know if you've ever been to the park, but they have those little 4 or 5 inch curbs up that are even asphalted where it
Yeah,
waters up. So that it takes the water and runs it down. Yep.
That was my thought. Is there any way to put some sort of curb gutter on that side where it could take a pipe, go down and out? Same thing on this side, a few places where it drains down into that. And you've got a berm on each side so that we're not eroding away everything else on the side. It's got 1 or 2 disbursement areas where it comes out of there, a concrete barrier or whatever would be appropriate for that.
Well, you already have the one that goes under, is it Juniper Circle, the circle itself?
Yes, yes.
So you already have the culvert, and it doesn't have the cement
Yes,
ends on
yes.
it, on that
Yeah.
one. So that one's already kind of protected.
I'm talking about this piece coming down from that road down this way. That's where all my problem is.
When it comes down off
When
of
it
that,
comes down, on this side, there's plenty big hard ditch. On this side, yeah.
there's nothing. And then it goes across into the other neighbors on the
Right,
bottom of the hill.
right. So is there some way to bring that down, like a gutter, like, curb and gutter situation where we're not gonna erode away the sides of the asphalt? There's a barrier there for anybody to see to drive. They're not gonna end up over there in that water ditch.
And the answer to that is yes. The engineer would just simply have to, their engineer have to design it, submit to our engineer for approval.
But it's vague in here on the engineering part too, so
Well, it's not necessary to be in here because a final plat can't be signed off
I
without.
understand that, but as councilman going over our ordinances in the town with 26 wide roads, and we're originally going along to 25 foot, what we stated was a mistake, 25 foot. And then now we're going by whatever the engineers say, 20 to 25 foot, and I think we should have a little more say in that by seeing what the engineers do finally come up with and say, okay, what is acceptable rather than arbitrarily saying, we're just gonna accept whatever the engineers say. And then these guys end up with a 14-foot wide road that we were against in the first place, or a 20-foot road.
I appreciate
So
what
there's
you're
still
saying. I'm just saying-
concerns with that a little bit.
I'm just saying
on
that-
this end.
I appreciate, I understand your exaggerating point to make your point. I accept your point. I was just saying that if you take it to that point, the engineer can't do that. So.
Right.
So. Marty, you've negotiated this with the developer. Mike,
Well,
you
we
can
never-
share some back.
We never got that far. The only thing I remember in a meeting was their engineer saying they'll make it to the town specs, but our town specs really probably call for, a 32-foot wide, I believe, with bar ditches on each side, which brings a 5-foot bar ditch on each side ends up with a 26-foot wide road, I'm pretty sure. And
It is.
we don't have, anywhere near 32 feet there. A legal travel lane is 12 feet wide. So to make it double, that's 24 feet. And, I understand that we've got an issue with some of this, but my understanding was that we know we've got to solve this problem and that it's not, the other option they have is we can put a crash gate on that property up there for the fire department, and the entrance is on Main Street or something. And then we don't have the traffic there and they don't have to worry about it. But that means reconfiguring even those homes on Rome Avenue. That's, there's alternatives that we don't have to say no, but we don't have to, put other people, the thing I have a problem with is only that we have other people that have been, that approach us with, road issues and subdivision issues and things like that. And if we're making this guy that's building a single home on the end of his 1,000-foot roadway, and we're making him put in the 90-foot or 100-foot turnaround, that in that road we're requesting is actually 26 feet wide as a minimum. And it just seems like how can we go less? you know. But I just like that things are the same from developer to developer and to person. Be honest.
That's a lot of validity in that for sure. That the developer has options. He doesn't have to pay the road. This is something that he's offering to do. We've already approved the subdivision. I'm not sure that we can go backwards on that because of the well agreement width of the asphalt. I'm wide open suggestion. Don't have to solve it.
Yeah, I told you.
I'm not sure that it can be solved with the parameters that we're working within. I mean, if that road were developed to handle the traffic it's going to have to handle, and all keeping in mind with future development. Look at hundreds of thousands of dollars to develop that road to get up to standard, take the use safely, what it's gonna take. And it's, I'm sure the developer doesn't have hundreds of thousands. So there's gotta be some other option. I'm not sure what that is. But then again, towns like Hurricane and other places like that, when a developer comes in, he accepts the cost of putting roads in and all the infrastructure, the cost of doing business with developing that development. That's the way cities grow. And Apple Valley's always been piecemeal here and there and the other place. And that's why we have the roads, and so we haven't to our standards for whatever reason. So it's a hard problem, but as Apple Valley, we don't have the money to put that, that road in. We just don't have it. That's why we depend on the developers to do it. I'm not sure that it can be handled. That road can be handled that way.
Well, I want to clarify, you're absolutely right, but there is also limitations by which a town can ask of the developer. And at that point, the town is required to take up the cost at that point. In this particular case, I think we all in agreement, number one, that it's a subpar road. To put it to today's standards, cut that hillside back. I think the numbers that we talked about were about 175,000 in road improvements before you get the road base and asphalt. And it also included adjacent property to get the easement cut back. So in this case, and in all cases, when you reference Hurricane, I have a development project where I'm required to bring in all of the utilities, roadways, and everything from my property 2 miles away from my property. So you're absolutely right. But I'm also only required to pay for a small percentage of that. The town has to pay for the rest of it. So because there is a limitation by which they require of us to pay. In this case, if let's say it's arbitrarily $175,000 cost, then if they were putting up a third and the town required to put up 2/3 of that.
Excuse me, it is hard to understand what people are saying up here and trying to have our conversation. The public hearing isn't open right now. If you guys could please hold your comments till we have public hearing. It's really hard to concentrate and have this discussion up here because it's the council's turn to have a discussion, not the public's. So if you could please hold your comments, tell public comments, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
So where the town typically would be picking up 2/3 of this, we still can require the developer to do it and reimburse him through impact fees because we don't have the cash flow to do it. But this project isn't large enough to sustain that type of investment and pay those impact. There's not enough impact fees there to pay us back. If there were future developments on the table that you're alluding to, then we could include them in that. But we're absent of those things. It's very difficult for us to be in a position where we can mandate that from him. My understanding when Marty reported this back to me in the spring was that he was elated that he got them to pay for the asphalt on this roadway. There was never any discussions in my conversations about constructions and renovations. I would have a hard challenge going 20-foot, Mike, as you suggested. I never enjoyed that number whatsoever. I talked to Russ, and Russ felt like they could get to 24 feet and still have some shoulder room with the, with relocation of this fire hydrant. I don't know that we're in a legal position to not move forward this project forward because we have already entitled this project and approved this project. We're addressing the development agreement portion of it that is tied to it. So again, I go back to what I said earlier. I'm wide open.
I'd like to clarify that. How is it that we are obligated on this project again?
I didn't say we were obligated. I said we'd already, what I said was, what we said was we've already approved and entitled this project.
Approved
That's
what
what I said.
on?
This subdivision's already been approved.
Well, how do we approve it though? We don't have a zone change yet.
I wasn't here before my time. I was under your deal.
In other words, the zone change isn't effective until we have a developer agreement. So we can't approve a subdivision without a zone change being approved.
Okay, I was before my time, Marty. I was under the impression you guys approved everything in this project. Can we hold our guys? I have to agree with Mike. Can we just hold our comments back? Please, when we get through this. So back to solution for the development agreement. You guys want to go back to legal and have them go to 25 feet mandatory? In regards to the,
Well, until this was brought up, I was not under we had not been informed that they weren't gonna be able to do the 25 foot when we agreed to this. And when we got to this point, and all of a sudden when they decided that we're talking about 20 feet
yeah,
or less. And so that's what's brought up the concern. We've been okay up until this point. So I guess it's getting the clarification down on what we're doing for our public safety and what's being done by the contractor and what we're doing.
and I'd like to add to that, Mike, if I could, if I didn't cut you off. This is, to me, is the epitome of where the JUC should have been involved in this project. All projects should work through these engineering issues before it ever goes to planning commission or ever goes to the town council. This should have been addressed at that level. It wasn't. So we're right back, we keep coming back to the same spot. It's kind of a decision. Do we make 25 foot the standard as our ordinance says? Or do we give a variance?
As of right now, my thoughts is we need to keep to our standard. Is my thought.
Then through a motion, sorry.
So we're good with paving 25 feet. We're just not good with taking out the hill because we feel like we're helping the city. This was a benefit to both the city and the developer.
Right.
One, he wanted a paved road to his subdivision. So we're like, yeah, we'll pave it. When we said that, yeah, our plan was to pave 25 feet. But at no time during that preliminary discussion, when we're going through the preliminary plat and the zoning, we know the road was only could max 20 feet. So we were fine with
24
paving.
feet.
Let me bring up another issue, just to see if we can get around this. When we get into, everything you guys have done, I mean, you've moved one road, you've gotten into where you've done the retention basin. I've had some other discussions with another developer and some things that I've done, and just curious, because in our paperwork as well on this here, we've got it in writing that impact fees have been waived because of the donation of property, so forth.
Yes.
Okay, so in that waiver, did we do vouchers? Did we do an analysis of what that property is worth as retention basin, whether it's 2,000 or 3,000 an acre or anything like that?
So we did we originally with, I think it was John, we sent an evaluation of what those costs were.
Okay,
I don't have those with me today, but they're above what the impact fee is.
okay. So, and this is the way I understand it, the way I kind of feel like it should be. If you're putting in more on the infrastructure for the town, because we're also, going to benefit from this project as far as for the future growth as well. And the way I understand it, when we say, okay, we'll waive this because you're doing this, we could be taking advantage of you or you could be taking advantage of us. And the way I understand it, if you do a voucher credit, then you're doing a voucher credit for work that's being done. Okay, so let's say you do enough work on a retention basin, including the property, and let's say that money's more than what our impact fees were, then you would get a voucher credit that you could sell off later to a future developer or whatever. And I understand most engineers understand how those vouchers work. Why aren't we doing that in order to say, let's say that the impact fees would be more than what you had to do, then that would be a trade-off, an evaluation of trade-off to what we're doing. So let's get back to the road. I don't know what we've done with impact fees on that. If there's another developer that comes in and develops more, why can't we, let's say, it takes $175,000 to build that road. The way I understand it, it's not my fault, it's not your fault, it's not his fault, that's the way that road was built 30, 35 years ago. Okay, but somebody wants to come in and put development in order to get to our standards, why we have the ordinances and we have a town standard. So we need the contractor, the developer, to come in and bring it to that standard. And so I don't know if we change how we do the impact fee part of it to where we're doing that in a more precise legal way. Because I just feel like sometimes the public thinks that we've done a special favor for somebody because we waived that impact fee, or we've done this or done that. And I know there's something probably should have been brought up a long time ago, but that's just one of my things with that road. I still would like to see the road done properly with where it's at and the problems that it brings up. I think that it just needs to be done right. I think it needs to be to where we have a 24, 25-foot road, to have our ditches done right, the asphalt, and do all that. To just say that we need to go and do 25-foot of road, I'm not an engineer, so I can't say that that's going to be safe or not safe. There's discussion back and forth. We can sit here and go back and forth with this all day long. But I do have a problem with passing this, saying, yeah, we're going to be good with whatever the engineers say, and then we have that 20-foot clause that's in that packet right there. And so that does concern me, that 20-foot concerns me a little bit.
We have no problem scratching the 20 to 25 and just saying 25. But just want to be clear, it'd be paving it all the way across, and we'll have to work with your engineer, with us and the engineer to figure out all the range, but we'll get 25 feet of asphalt. I mean, we're not trying to get away from the 25 feet of asphalt.
And I'm not saying you are, but there's just confusion on who's going to pay for what, who doesn't want to pay for this and everything else. And it's just, personally, I don't feel that the town should be responsible for $175,000 worth of work to the mountain, just so your development can go in. What's the other alternatives if that's what's got to be done?
Okay, I'm gonna clarify, I just want to cover briefly. I did look at the evaluations, and the impact fees and the evaluation of ground contribution balanced out. So whatever money is spent on this road is in addition to that, so there's no work to recover them. However, the vouchers or development credits we're talking about, let's arbitrarily say it's $175,000 to him. In the development agreement, we can give him a developer credit so that when people tie on this road in the future, assuming they do, then their impact fees or a portion of it go back to retire that debt too.
Right, because he can sell those vouchers off to.
Well, he can't, we can't. He can't, he doesn't have legal right to them.
I thought what I understand is the developer has legal right to it, it's his voucher.
No, he has to, the town is responsible for collecting all impact fees and redistribution. So he can't sell it to another developer or collect those fees. I'm trying to remember the guy, Travis Holmes owns the ground at the end of the cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
If he wanted to develop 30 homes up there with an impact fees of $600,000, we could allocate a portion of that to go back to reimburse him for his contribution to that. That's the way that would work.
So sooner or later, that road's gonna have to be repaired for any work.
No, they can go out to Main Street. That's what the guy in the back of Forrest Keeney, want to call him Hank. That's what he's advocating, they go out to Main Street. And
That's what the town advocates.
and
I would agree with that.
It
All
is,
the problems go away and all future development comes in on that main road off of Main Street.
absolutely, but there is one legal challenge that we have to address too, and I'm not the lawyers, I'm saying, it's a public road, they're entitled to a public road. It's just a matter of how do we get the improvements there to reduce the impact that they're putting on the public road. So we can't just say, well, let's mandate them out to Main Street, because they're entitled to public road access too. But if there is an impact, we can require them to correct.
But the road doesn't really sustain,
It doesn't sustain the current residents. It's a subpar road. So to add more traffic up there to it has an impact on it. And that's
All
what we
right,
have
well,
to
if you can
figure
get
out.
25-foot road, and that's the ordinance, and it matches that. The only real issue at that point is what do we do with the water coming off the side of the hill?
And
And there's a bar ditch right there. It either needs to be concreted in, the water all needs to go this way, or you need to pipe it and cover it up and get your asphalt in there with a concrete bar ditch or some sort.
except for the bar ditch is not on inside our current.
So we can,
right
It's
away.
on somebody else's property.
so we can slope the road back toward the hill.
Right,
The hill is inside the right of way.
correct.
We can slope the road back toward the hill and pave it all the way to the hill. And make a little swell on the asphalt as it comes down. And then it takes away the problem of the ditch. But it's gonna be part of the road too, so the drainage can go there, dump into the asphalt, and it's steep enough there, the asphalt can run, convey the water.
Water.
And then at the bottom, it'll just come off into the existing bar ditch, but it'll be 25 feet. But part of that 25 feet will be that ditch in the asphalt. So in the rain events, it'll handle the water. And then in the,
But let's be clear what we're talking about, because you guys are been here, maybe not, you've been here longer. Do you remember the old Blood Street, St. George, that had the water come down there? That's basically what he's talking about, saying, though, there's not enough width in there for road and bar ditch together. And our standard, as Marty pointed out earlier, is actually 25 feet of asphalt plus bar ditches. And I think it's 5-foot base on both sides, that puts you closer to.
So I think to let the public know, we're talking about
I just
the
thought-
ditch running down the middle of the road so that the water collects towards the middle and then comes down to a lower collection.
well, I wasn't saying toward the middle because it's not wide, it's not.
How do we have?
It's not
I'm
wide.
saying.
When I say push it all over to that.
But when you
east
said
side.
Blood
hill.
Street, that's the first thing with my mind, is getting out to where all the water
Yeah.
goes and center and
And
I
runs
still
down.
think, because
And I
on this
agree.
side, you got nothing, you need to put a limit, all needs to go this way. so
But
we got-
I think that's the best scenario is to kick it toward the hill.
That's towards the hill, that's what my.
And we can do that. We can kick it toward that hill and just super it. You're coming around that curve, so it supers backwards to normal, but it'll kick the water toward the hill and run it down that hill. But it just pave all the way to the hill as far as we can and get 25 feet.
And in my, cause then you raise red flag for me because you're taking one subpar road, and replacing with another subpar road. So
So what's your concern on, because you
Well-
mentioned drainage, and I think this will solve your drainage erosion problem because it'll be asphalt.
I don't disagree with that. I have two challenges. One is gonna accelerate the water down and do more damage on the bottom of the hill. Number two is that if we have a half-inch, quarter-inch rain here, that road lane by which people are driving in is now gonna be impacted by a drainage. That's my two fundamental challenges with the engineering of it. So I kind of feel like we're going from one subpar road to another subpar road.
Well, so if you slope it towards the hill, when it does snow, it does snow here, actually, it's water on that road, and freezes the girl on that too, then people are gonna just put on their brakes and slide into the hill.
It's just a bad road period. Again, I go back, let's pick the thing up and move it somewhere else. I'm all for that. I'm all for a cul-de-sac at the bottom of the hill. Then that puts you right back going out on Main Street on the gravel roadways with no access to a public road that already exists. And you can't do cul-de-sacs with people on top won't have access either. So it's a challenging road.
It's,
It is.
it's a no-win,
I don't know that
don't have the answer.
I don't know that we can find a solution, even cutting back into the hill because of the grade of the road and the curvature of the road. We're not widening the road will give you some relief, but you still have a slope there and you still have a curve there to deal with.
Well, gentlemen, we need to make a decision. I think this is going on.
Well, I got one other thought. If you're well into anything, before we move on to the motion.
We're open to we're open to anything. We just, we've worked hard to try to work with the scenario we're dealing with.
We know that.
Yeah, the town, we're trying to hit all the items.
I think, I want to make it very, very clear. We have a subpar road. No matter what we do up there, even with, unless we just completely rebuild a 50-foot road up there, I'm being facetious there, we're gonna end up with another subpar road to some degree. So we're trying to make it as safe and as possibly can. If you're gonna go to 25 feet, then I would suggest rather than swale the roadway, I would rather consider having our engineer take a look at piping it under the road with storm drain collection at the top. That would be my suggestion.
And we're not opposed to that, but historically, you're gonna have it on your road no matter what.
I understand that.
So-
It's subpar. It is a subpar location. And no matter what we do, it's still gonna be a subpar location. But when you start talking about introducing water to the surface of a street, I start backing up. I would prefer that you consider going to the top of the hill with a collection basin, put storm drain underneath the road in lieu of a dip in the road to keep us 1 to 2 inches of surface water off the top during those rains. That would be my preference.
Like I said, we want to move forward. We haven't even thought of that idea. So I'm not saying it's a bad idea. The thing we would hope is that we just change this language to say 25 foot, not 20 to 25 foot. We know we're gonna pave it, and then we can work with your engineering department and find the best solution on that item. And then move forward with the development agreement, because we're gonna pave the 25-foot width, and if your engineer doesn't approve it, then we gotta keep finding solutions to approve it, the drainage down that.
How do you guys feel about subsurface? Okay. Oh, nice.
So, any way you can get the water off the road and bring it down that hill, pushing it out to the north side.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I mean, this is one of those another maintenance thing.
Yeah,
It's just gotta be on the list of a priority maintenance thing, not be forgotten.
It's gonna introduce water to somebody's property at the bottom. That's,
Well, then if that's an issue anyway. I mean,
But that's
been
an issue anyway, yeah.
I think,
We've been washing out everybody's driveway, cul-de-sacs on that side of the road ever since I've been here. I've dug those things up 100
well,
times.
and understanding that the engineer would work through that to come up with that best design, if we change that to say 25 feet, period.
Yeah, I think we need to change it to the 25-foot period, and then, with the engineers looking at what's gonna have to be done, and then report back with
Yeah.
how it's gonna have to work with the 25-foot.
Hey, Dale?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, Dale, the idea you had was a discussion I had with Sunrise at one point when we're trying to figure out solutions, because there's a significant amount of water that comes out from the water tanks down both sides of that road. And one of the thoughts I had was we need to get some of that water off of there to help the flooding that happens down below. And maybe that's a solution to at least help with the problem of the road being washed out. So that, I know that we discussed that at one point.
Okay.
So we are doing that. We're taking the drain.
Yeah.
patching the ditch, and we're taking it down our road.
Down your
putting it
road
in
out to the
detention
pond,
pond.
and there is a cross-cut piece of pipe through there that takes it over right by where you guys are at also.
And we have to extend that pipe
Right,
because of the
so that
25-foot width.
should eliminate most of everything coming off that hill directly. down
I think the
property.
biggest drainage that's coming down is off Juniper.
Okay, so,
Yes,
Like we're cutting off all that corner.
yeah, you're taking pretty much most of that water out.
And putting it in the detention and the ditches through the subdivision work.
Yes.
So we are cutting a lot of that off.
Yes, you are.
so if we, take line item 4A and, reduce that to simply say to be a 25-foot wide asphalt street, the developer shall install 25 feet of asphalt where they, period, where the existing subgrade support portion, take that out there, blah, 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 all the way to the end of that sentence, where the existing grade, 25 feet of asphalt. Feet. Solid 25 foot asphalt in this section. So, before that, identify those areas for review. Okay, so it would now read, the developer agrees to construct a paved roadway on the existing city road Rome Avenue. The developer shall install 25 feet of asphalt. If the developer intends to, we'll take that out too. 25 feet of asphalt pursuant to this paragraph, the developer shall submit an engineering report identifying those areas for review and approval by the town engineer during the construction plan review process. So that just buttons it up and says 25-foot barrier.
So we'll need to do whatever is necessary to get the water off the hill after that.
That'll be the engineer working on that design. That's what we're saying in the last sentence. Paul?
Yeah.
Mike, you okay with that?
Yeah. Good with that.
Okay, then,
I'll let you word it, you worded it. I'll let you
Okay.
word it or for the motion.
I'm gonna
You
make,
might want to plug in as amended in council.
yeah, I'm gonna make a motion that we approve the development agreement contingent upon the paragraph 4A being reconstructed and approved by our attorney that will says as follows. The developer agrees to construct a paved roadway on existing city road, Rome Avenue, with a 25-foot wide asphalt road. The developer shall install 25 feet of asphalt. Pursuant to this paragraph, the developer shall submit an engineering report identifying those areas for review and approval, and I'm gonna add the word final approval, by the town's engineer during the construction plan review process.
Second.
Vote begin with Paul.
Aye.
Marty?
Aye,
Aye.
yes.
Aye. Okay, so pursuant to those changes from the attorney, I'll circulate a copy to all the council members so they can confirm that it was corrected tomorrow. Actually, it'll be Monday because our attorney's out of state till Thursday, Friday. And then I can go ahead and execute that agreement for next week. Okay, and you understand that this is a subpar road. We're gonna go to great lengths with our engineer to make sure that we can get the best out of it that we can get without taking it up, relocating it, short of doing that. Okay? All right, we'll end item number 5. Here's 5-0. Let's move item number 6 forward, would please. Discussion of possible action on cancellation of Robert and Maria Campbell's development agreement. We talked about this last month. We were going to move forward. We required them to have a development agreement as part of their approval. Marty, what was that, fall, October-ish? Is that about the time frame?
Yeah, I think it was October.
And we required them to have a development agreement. After review, I'm going to read the mayor's statement here. I reviewed the minutes from the town council meeting on November 18th. I'm sorry, it was November, not October. As well as the draft development agreement prepared by Robert Campbell. It appears that the reason for requiring the development agreement was to limit the number of units to 11. That can be done by ensuring that the final plat contains only 11 units. Regarding the agreement, I have concerns that it would require obligations of the town beyond what would normally be included in the approval of the final plat. For example, the draft would require the town to further amend its ordinances to be in line with the agreements, which the town cannot do without public notice in the hearing. And the draft states that 11 rental units would be permitted plus other accessory buildings, which I am not sure was the intent. Intent of navigating and negotiating all the language beyond what the original motion included, my recommendation is to simply simplify the process by putting it back on the agenda to approve with the requested zone change on the condition that the final plat be limited to 11 units, which will accomplish the apparent purpose of requiring the development agreement. However, if council wants to proceed with the development agreement, please let me know and I'll work out the details with Mr. Campbell. I spoke with Mr. Campbell again this afternoon and Maria's here tonight, and Mr. Campbell indicated they were fine not doing the development agreement. There was 2 primary issues that I had with this development agreement. One, through the system, because we were still operating in the district board, the applicant was actually allowed to go ahead and do his installation of this water system, which has already been completed to date, which is one of the items that we want to address in the development agreement. He was also permitted to put in his roadway because it's not public roadway. He was also allowed to do the drainage, stormwater on his project. So in essence, his project is already done and built. He's ready to go vertical with his buildings. So the only thing we would be gaining with the development agreement, in my opinion, was liability. So I was the reason I took it to Mr. Hall and had him review it. So my motion tonight is that we remove the contingency of the development agreement for Robert and Maria Campbell's project. And Maria, I forgot the name of it. I was trying to remember the name of it. I'm sorry? I'm sorry?
Cedar Creek and Gooseberry Mesa Cabins.
Good.
Lower Creek and.
Oh, Little Creek. Okay, Little Creek and Gooseberry Mesa Cabins, and allow their project to move forward without the development agreement. Second.
Second that.
Vote begin with Paul. Aye. Marty?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye. Vote carries 4-0. I did send you guys a copy of an email earlier tonight that I sent to the applicant, notifying them that that where they basically were in the process. Mr. Campbell was appreciative, and I'm glad we got that. Their next step is to submit their final plat.
I'd like to make a comment about this.
Yeah.
I feel like you just ran over everybody being able to even say anything about this, having any discussion. And I just think it's important for the community to understand why I'm voting okay on this. And what I did some research on this, and the developer agreement. My big push is we need something that's in writing that says we're going to limit this to 11 cabins. And same thing happens in a plat process where we have it in a plat, it's in writing, it's recorded, just like a developer agreement is. And the same thing can happen on either item. So these applicants or future applicants can come in to the town at any point, 10 years from now, and whoever's in the office and decides that they want to do a plat amendment, they can come in and say, I want to build 3 more cabins, for example. And they can apply for a plat amendment. And if it has to go through planning commission, it has to go through public hearings, it has to go through the council, everything has to be done just like it was up to this point. The same thing can happen on a developer agreement where we're limiting them to 11 cabins. They can come in and say, I want 3 more cabins. And, they go through the planning process, and whoever's in the mayor's office can, by a vote and by public hearings, amend that developer agreement, adding 3 more cabins. So holding them just to a developer agreement at this point, it's not going to get us anywhere. It's the same thing as doing a plat based on the way we're doing it. That's why we're changing our position, or at least that's why I'm changing my position on it.
Thank you. Sorry if you felt like I stepped on toes. Anybody else have any comments on this?
Good.
Good?
Yeah.
Okay.
We learned the same information.
Yeah, and I apologize, Mark, because I thought I addressed that last meeting, so I moved on. So anyway, you're good. You've got your key letters, so you guys are ready to submit your Mylar final plan. Now with the Robert determination. Okay. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to line item number 1, fiscal year 21 budget adjustments. I'm sorry, yeah. Open up for public hearing for fiscal year 21 budget adjustment and for fiscal year 22 final budget adjustment option. You think it was in black letters, you can see it. Huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Marty, you want to jump in and take this? This is your budget.
Whenever the public hearing is done, I think it's appropriate that I wait till whoever spoke or wants to speak should speak. I guess I can lead off if you prefer.
I just want you to make a comment, bring us up to speed so the public can comment on it.
Right. I have a lot of comments to make, but I'm gonna narrow the scope down quite a bit. We did grammar request. Tish and I grammar requested the general ledger. We went through the general ledger. We spent about 3 days on it. We did some write-ups on different issues that we spotted in the budget. And I want to say that the office is working on some of that. We don't have all of our answers, and we have a lot of questions. And we've spotted a lot of problems in the 2021 budget amendment. And I'm going to raise my hand and say that most of it's my fault, because we, ever since Ben took off, there's been some problematic entries made in our system that are just simply accurate, but not in the right place is all. That's the best way to put it. And when you take in the taxes, for example, from the state of Utah, you want to enter that under taxes from the state of Utah. If it's a RAP tax or if it's a highway tax, it doesn't go under sales tax. And we have a lot of that, I think, mingling, where if it was from the state, they just put it in under state. And that's why I think our sales tax increased this year, not because we had more sales tax, but because things were miscategorized in the wrong areas. We've made a note of a lot of these, but we haven't, it takes time to have all those fixed. And my regret is that I didn't ask for a general ledger from the get-go, because then, and that's what we're doing today, by the way, we've already asked for July's general ledger. So we can go through that every single month. We're going to be asking for it, just so we can help the office make sure they're properly categorizing this. So when it comes time for budget year next year, we're able to have a nice clean financials that tell us where we spent our money. And that's part of the problem. So one of the problem areas on our budget for 2022 and for the amended budget of 2021 is centered around the building permits. And if we take in money for a building permit and we just, we charge someone $8,000 for a building permit, for example, and we just put that in as a number that we collected and go on our merry way, we're missing that HCP gets their percentage, which, per house, it could be $700-800 and, or more even. And then there's a 1% fee that we have to pay to the state of Utah. And what we discovered in going over these books in the general ledger is neither of those items have been paid since Ben left to the state. And so these monies are commingled under building permits. And if you'll notice, our building permit increase from last year to present is significantly higher. And chances are, even though we have $80-some thousand, I think, projected on our budget, the number is likely going to be closer to the 35 that we had last year. And I feel like that just because it says we collected that much, it's not true. There's money that gets paid out to Lance for the inspections. That money was not separated out of the building permit fees. And so we're putting a total amount of the fees in for the building permits without segregating that money to keep track of that money going out. And it's just problematic in the long run. And so if you look on the budget, on the very bottom line, under transfers, it says transfers, and you'll see transfers assigned to balance, fire impact fees. You'll see under our budget, there's $0. Well, 25 or 27 homes were, we collected fire money for an impact fee, and here it says 0. And the troubling thing to me on all of these items, because you can see a lot of them are blank, is none of them were separated out. The proper way that we are supposed to take that money in is we take in that money and we segregate it item by item. And the reason is we need to, like on the fire impact and road impact and stormwater impact, those fees are, we're limited on what we can do with that money. We can't just take road impact money and go pave, Gooseberry Mesa, the Gooseberry subdivision, Ranches subdivision. Those, we can maintain the road with, to a standard with our, with different funds, but we can't, impact fees are for new infrastructure. So that means we can go build a road somewhere, but we can't raise the standard on the existing roads with the impact fee money. And those monies should be not only categorized properly, but followed in a spreadsheet. And that spreadsheet would look something like where, you know, who paid the fees, what the permit number was, what the amount was, when we collected it. And then as we do projects, we enter in another column, money that we spent that money on. So we have this check and balance over the course of, you know, several years, because we only have 6 years to spend that money, or we're supposed to refund it. And nobody wants to be given that money back, you know, because we didn't spend it someplace, but we do have limited limits on what we can spend it on. So anyway, the other thing that's let me finish one other thought on the impact fees. This started off by me not tracking closely the personnel that were brand new when Ben left, to keep a close eye on them, and that's my fault. It's not Del Beto's fault. It's my fault. And the other, because I feel like that I'm the guy that was supposed to be training these people, and I didn't oversee it like I should have. So anyway, that's what we're trying to do different today to help correct that. But this has gone into the new administration's bookkeeping as well, where because of lack of training, this is still happening. As recent as June, we took in the building permit for the RV park, and they went through all the trouble to type in the memo section what each item was that equaled that amount of money. So they go through all the trouble of type it in there, but no one will ever see those notes other than if you're specifically looking for that. And what should happen is those monies should have been brought in and tagged under each individual input category. And then that separates that money into basically separate checkbooks, so to speak, that help us segregate. When we run a report, then that money is not aggregate, collectively put into a building permit column that we think we can go spend the money on, anything that we want to spend it on. And so having the books right is so important. The other thing that we discovered that I'm going to mention was there was about $101,000 in the my wife is in the room. Maybe she can come up with the language on it. It was deferred tax revenue, I think was how it was. And the deferred tax revenue, I'm just questioning why in the world would we defer a tax revenue? If we don't have it, it should be on our new budget in this year, not last year. And so that, and by the way, I didn't see where that's even in this amended budget, that 101,000. So it's in our general ledger, yet it doesn't show up in this paperwork here. I want to make sure you guys understand what's happening here is that we can run a report in Polaris, and that gives us what the checkbook looks like. But then this information is transferred to a spreadsheet, which is what the state of Utah wants us to submit to them for the budget. And if we're not inputting what's in the general ledger on that spreadsheet, that's where the disconnect can happen, where I think that we have a few errors. And that's part of what we wrote up and we want some answers on. We have a $6,250 culinary water impact fee. This is a town. It should be under the district bookkeeping, not in the town bookkeeping. There's some refunds that we're concerned about that, that were given, and they're probably given out of the town budget, yet they should have came out of Big Plains checkbook, not ours. But we're searching out some of that stuff. Basically on the fiscal 21 proposed budget, I think that at this point we should do a little more homework before we try to polish this up. And but on the fiscal year 2022 budget, even though there's some flaws in it, I don't think they're significant enough to hold it up anymore. There's the one major flaw that I would make a motion that we correct is we had $100,000 contingency, if you remember, for income, and we were going to divide up into 3 parts. And what ended up in the paperwork here is 35,000, 35,000, and 35,000. So anybody can add that up and see that's more than the $100,000 contingency. So I'm recommending that we remove that from one of these categories. You guys can talk about where, and make it 30, 35, 35, and then that'll make at least that close enough. Like with the sales tax, our estimate is probably high because of understanding that some of this money doesn't belong under that account. And the 80,000, I think we had, what did we estimate for? Yeah, there 80,000 for the building permit fees is probably high, unless Jefferson Canyon or the Travis Wells project starts paying building permits, then possibly that would change next year. And then we're, this is a low number at that point, but at this point, it's, it's not worth trying to beat up because we don't have an accurate number to put in there anyway. It's not that far off. Any questions?
Yeah, but just a comment, for Jefferson Canyon, we did get 6-week notification today that they were gonna be ready for grant.
I'm missing the words on some of that.
Sorry, I just, side note clarification, our statement about Jefferson Canyon, we did get notification from them today that they were 6 weeks ready to break ground. Just so you know. Okay,
I'm sorry, Dale, you're drifting off on your voice and I couldn't hear that. I'm sorry.
I would just say, make a side note that we received notification from Jefferson Canyon today that they were 6 weeks out for breaking ground. Hear that, John?
All right.
I had Dave Sanderson look at this too, and obviously they're looking at it monthly, and Marty's right on par what he's saying. So Dave, we've got a lot of training to do with staff, work through these issues, but both of our accountants, or all 3 of our accountants, Dave, Jeff, and John, felt like that we were accurate enough that we could prove our budgets. They had a different interpretation of some things, and some were style versus substance. The transit tax, for example, he had a different interpretation of that. And so I think Marty's on the money, but I do think we're also out of time, and our accountant assures that we're capable of passing this. Our attorney feels like we can pass it. If we wanted to make some adjustments like Marty's talking about, we can approve our budget with contingent of getting those adjusted.
Well, this is 2 motions, I can make a motion that we, approve the fiscal year 2022 budget with the one change that we reduced the contingency money to balance. And that means that one of them's probably got to lose $5,000. We've got to decide what account that comes out of. But I would make a motion to pass that.
Yours?
We're also still in public hearing,
Still
so
public hearing, so that's gonna be it.
All right.
Anybody else want to call?
I don't have any other comments.
Okay. Folks, it's open for public comment. Would you like to go forward? Mr. Osaki, if you'd like to go
Front
forward,
and
please.
center.
Why not?
Attention, senor.
We can do it.
+3.
Move this over a little so you can start throwing things at me. So you see me. Hopefully the camera can see me too.
It's not working.
Camera's not working, but they can hear you.
Just audible.
So just audible. On the budget, since this is the 3rd time up here for the budget, and I know we want to get it passed. A couple of questions. Well, there's more than a couple. First of all, the mayor here just mentioned there's 3 accountants working on this, Jeff, and John, and Marty and Titch. So who, if the attorneys were paying the
do this budget, who's actually in charge of working on this budget? We're paying accountants to do this budget through the administration of town, but yet I have Marty.
Mr. Brand is our accountant.
So he did the budget.
No, Marty did the budget last year. The council managed the budget, and then we balanced the budget 2 months ago.
Yeah,
Started working on balancing.
started working on it. So the new budget of 22 is, David,
He's
Jeff does that because he's an accountant, right?
Jeff and John Barlow,
Yeah, John.
along
Barlow.
with council and previous administration, put the budget together in 2022.
Okay, so basically what Marty's talking about is the budget for 21.
I'm talking about both of them. We've helped on both of them.
Both of them. So we do
It's-
have
it's
quite
a-
a few people working on the budget.
It's a collaboration, Richard. It's,
Yeah.
it's many hands in the pot giving input.
As I can see.
Including yours. Because you made some comments that we've taken into consideration too.
Okay, this will go with everybody working on the budget. And hopefully, like you say, you need to get it passed because I think you had slightly a deadline of last month. And can't keep coming back with all these problems or potential problems. In the budget itself, this does pertain to the budget. The Campbells, is there something in the budget? They gave the town a water truck. Now, it was a good water truck, but the transmission went out in it evidently from what I hear. Maybe I'm wrong. Is there something in the budget to fix that truck since we've lost the transmission in it?
My understanding, Marty, that engine, that truck, that water truck went down about a year ago. Is that correct?
No, that's not. It's, the water truck has a transmission problem. And we, we probably need to find a split shift transmission and have it repaired. Several $1,000s. I think it's worth fixing, but that's, we've, I had at one time, had someone looking into possibly finding a transmission and what it would cost to repair. I just never got the numbers back.
So we got some numbers about a week and a half ago, Marty, and they were about 8,000 to repair it. So we are looking right now on the open market for transmission replacement. And we've got one individual who's willing to donate that.
Awesome.
That'd be great. Yeah, about 8,000. Okay, I just wanted to make sure we're addressing that towards our budget too and not overlooking that. Back to the transmission problem. This is budget but not budget. Make sure we don't loan that water truck out to people that aren't associated with that. That's all. That's just a statement. The same with the grader. Anytime we loan the grader out, I don't know if you classify this in budget. There are some other items, but we don't want to loan this equipment out, especially to any developers or used on their roads if we're responsible for the equipment of ours. So that's the only thing I got to say on that. The public bathrooms. Now, in the budget of 21, are we complete and there's no money needs to go to the public bathrooms? Is the public bathrooms complete in 21 budget and no money is allotted to it in 22 budget? Are we done with the bathrooms right here by the pavilion?
My understanding, we have one small outstanding invoice, and then we still have some repairs in the landscaping, which was being donated by private resident.
Okay, that's all I wanted to see if we're still kind of wrapping that up and getting close to a finish so we don't have to continue carrying it into this 22 budget. There is a lot of dead grass out there on pallets. And, hopefully that was donated and at a cost to the town.
That's actually what they tore out to put the concrete in.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
It's just because people are getting confused the other night.
And it's.
They look at
just
it
needs-
and they say, where are you laying that?
It just needs to probably be disposed.
Yeah, that's all. If they can haul it off and nobody would say too much of it. So we got a few loose ends just to finish up in 22 budget.
21.
also had built into our budget for that to have the electrician to take some power out to the gazebo and to the pavilion so we could light up the lights and have a couple of outlets out there. And that's already been, I think it may have even been paid for. So we've got to just get a hold of him and get him out there to finish that up as well.
If we go to administration is 41, under salaries. The 21 had roughly 78.5 and we're at 90. So there was some increases in salaries for some employees here or the new help that we hired.
No, it's just a proposed budget expenditure to increase it. We haven't done it yet.
You haven't done it. So you proposed $90,000 and I understand that from the 78 for whatever
Well,
increases you might have
Yeah,
for additional administration people.
yeah. We are by far understaffed, new people, undertrained. We're struggling with labor in the administration, absolutely.
And everybody is throughout the country.
And we're growing. We're growing too. We're growing, faster than we can probably handle. We're restructuring our internal offices right now to accommodate that.
Well, good thing we got control under growing. We don't want to overgrow. That's for sure. Get ahead of ourselves. The new girl, I understand there's a new girl was hired, a young gal. I was at the county office a couple days ago, talking to the voting people there and looking over the voting machines. The young lady that does the counting herself there, said she knew the girl that was hired here and that she seems pretty responsible, even though she's young. So you've got a new person on our payroll as far as a young girl for the office here?
No,
No, so there's nobody been hired.
we're in the process of interviewing. We've been in the process of interviewing for about 6 months
Okay,
and advertising.
gotcha. Hopefully we can hire within Apple Valley, but that's pretty hard. If you go down to line 41, 320. 21 had, and this is a good thing, has 77,000. And that's under engineering professional fees. You keep mentioning that we're throwing all these problems back to an engineer to get the okay. So that 20,000 seems a little low if the engineer, if that's the correct item to where he comes from, where it's taken out of. The money we have to keep going back to the engineer to solve these problems, is road problems on the wrong way. That increases his fees. We pay him not,
No, we don't. The developer who is required to develop for improving that roadway out there is required to pay engineer fees.
so he's paying it even though we say we contact town's engineer or attorney and they work out the wordage.
There's two ways to bill him. You can bill the developer directly for any additional engineering fees you might have to review the roadway.
Yeah.
Or you can charge him, you can pay for that through the impact fees to pay the engineer. Those are two ways of paying for that.
Or like Mike said, vouchers.
That's not what vouchers are for.
Okay, because I said it might cost him more money to do what needs to be done to bring that up to code or policy. So it's the cost of all this that we've been going through every meeting is on the back of the developer.
Correct,
Okay,
for the most part. Let me clarify, because you always like to hold my feet to the fire. So the developer is required for any and all utilities and offsite improvements to support his subdivision.
right.
If the town requires something to be built above and beyond that, the town is responsible for that, for the cost of that.
But a developer also reads our policies and reads what that road should be. He reads that and he knows what he's getting into. And he says 25 feet or whatever in the policy, then he really understands that's where he's coming from.
Of course,
Okay, he should when he comes in. The
I
last,
assume that, let me correct that, I assume you read it.
yeah, hopefully. Item 4180. 35,000, that's a new item. What was that 35,000 for, since we've never previously had it in a budget?
That's the contingency that we were just talking about.
Yeah.
We had some leftover funding. We initially were planning on putting that into a reserve account and using it for what, we need over next year. There was some concerns about it not being allocated, so we decided to go back and reallocate it to 3 different departments. Fire,
They're just sitting there for now.
Yeah. Yep.
And then we'll decide at a future meeting if we need it or get into it.
correct.
Okay, and the last thing was, it was mentioned, a little less than $100,000 was coming in from COVID.
99,000 change.
99 some thousand and change. And that's in this revision budget, or it's just an overlook from the other budget? It's still part of this budget coming out.
I don't think so, because I think it was allocated after the budget was prepared, and I'll have to check on that to see if that's accurate.
Okay,
Because I'm not sure we were aware that we were getting those funds until 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, you don't want to have it in the budget.
And they were after the budget was prepared.
so the budget can be approved, and then if we do get the 100,000, then that'd be going into the budget.
Not due, we've already received half of it.
Oh, have you? Okay.
Just last week or something, we received half of that.
A few people have asked, and you've already determined from this last meeting we had where that money can be allotted to, where it can go and what it can be used for.
Yeah, there's supposed to be a list on what we can't use that for. I haven't seen that list yet.
Okay.
I think it's specified asphalting, Foothill Drive.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah.
I'm sure all those people out there will really appreciate that.
That would work. That's basically it.
That's it? Anybody else?
Thanks, Richard.
Forrest, anything?
No, on the budget, sure.
Ma'am? Anybody? Okay. Anybody online? I don't think we have anybody online. So, Tish is online. Do you have anything? Not sure if she can hear me. Okay, unless she pops up in the next 10 seconds, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. And we'll go on fiscal year budget 21 adjustments and fiscal year 22 final budget adoptions. I think Marty, you're going to make a motion, 2 separate motions for these 2 items.
Yeah, I make a motion that we pass the fiscal year 2022 budget with what the account do you want to pull that out of, that 5,000 too much? You got fire, roads, and administration.
I'll second it.
Yeah, we need to identify where we're going to pull it out.
I'm not finished yet.
Oh, the side.
I would say, administration, Marty.
Administration, yeah.
I think that's a consensus.
All right, so I make a motion that we approve the fiscal year 2022 budget with the one modification that we reduce the contingency expenditure from $35,000 to $30,000. And that's it.
From administration.
From the
From administration.
Yeah, from the administration.
Second with Mike, Paul,
Aye.
Marty,
Aye.
aye,
Aye.
aye. Vote carries 5-0. Fiscal year 21 budget adjustments.
And on
You had a
the,
second motion.
did you want to do the fiscal year 2021 now or
Yeah, you had a second. I thought you already had what you would do.
on the motion?
Yeah,
Okay, so I make a motion that we table the approval of the current year proposed fiscal year 2021 adjustments pending some answers to questions that we provided to the city, to the town. And so we might just kick it down one more, till the next meeting, and hopefully we'll have some answers on some of that, and then we can take a second look at it.
It is, I can tell you, it is.
Marty, isn't, before we go to the second on the motion, isn't this one time sensitive though? I'm sorry, before we go to the motion for the second motion, isn't this one time sensitive, Howard?
Are we time sensitive? What's the
They are
time?
asking for it.
They're asking for I think our time expires on this like 2 days.
It expires on what?
on our 21 budget adjustments.
Why does it expire today?
No, I think we have 2 days left to get it approved. I was asking, is it time sensitive? I don't know why I can't hear me. Can you hear me at all?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. It's not, I don't, you guys can pass it if you want.
Look at it.
So if somebody else wants to make a motion, they can.
I'm just trying to clarify before we do whether it's time sensitive or not, and I thought it was.
Since we want to pass this tonight, I'm gonna dig a little deeper for you, to get an idea. So if you go down to the last page of the budget, I mentioned fire impact fees before that are completely blank. And then road impact fees say 16,526. The next one, stormwater impact fees, it's blank. And when I go through the general ledger, the road impact fees, if I'm not mistaken, Tish can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was one of these other numbers matched up to it. In other words, these are in the wrong category, even though the number was the correct number, and then one of them was completely missing. Seemed like it was around 40 grand in the stormwater impact fee. That was, I don't know if it was that one. Sorry, I don't have the general ledger in front of me, or I can tell you to the penny. But, and then if you look at the transfer to fund balance, 251,999, there's no freaking way we got $251,000 to transfer. And, we don't have, I don't know. Yeah, if you guys want to pass it, have at it.
Okay.
I originally seconded your motion, Marty, so.
Okay, second, vote.
All right,
Good.
we table it.
Table it. Mike, Marty?
Yeah. What do you guys want to do?
I seconded your motion.
We're tabling it.
All right. Aye.
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 Okay, item 3, discussion possible action on fiscal year 21 budget adjustment. Okay, sorry. Okay, so 22 approved. That's it. Reports, recommendations, announcements. Nobody here tonight? Moving to public comment section. Mr. King. I always have to remember your name because I always want to say Hank.
I'm not that rich. Just a quick question. We talked a lot about 25-foot paved roads. The way I read the books, 30 foot is minimum paved road. So I'd like to, someone to explain to me where they got 25. If we can find it in the books, that's great. I don't believe it's in there.
I'll be happy to get a copy because I've seen it, and Kevin and I talked, Councilmember Sarah and I talked about this 2 weeks ago. There is some conflicts in our ordinances because it says one thing in one section and something in another section.
It says 25 foot, for example, an RV park. But this is not an RV park. This is a subdivision road. Big difference.
Okay, so I'll pull that.
Please, you don't have to do it right tonight, but I would love to see that because I do not believe it's 25 feet. In fact,
I think it's actually 26, but the overall thing is, what I understand, the 32 includes the bar ditches and everything coming in from that.
if you can find where you're reading that, I'd love to hear.
Okay, I'll have to look it up because
There was one other question, there was mention of a building permit for an RV park.
one right next to the Chevron
Station.
That's not been approved. How can it have building permit?
I'm sorry.
Is it,
The building permit for Knollwood, I'll pull that. I can get a copy of that.
I'm not concerned about the building permit, I'm concerned about how it's approved. The RV park itself,
It was before my time. So.
it was,
I never filled the RV park that I remember, so.
No,
I know they have a development agreement and they'll have the agreement with UDOT for their roadway, so they got some, was approved at some point.
they have a development agreement.
No, an agreement with UDOT.
That's different than Apple Valley.
No, I understand. If you go through the procedures to get to that point, they would have to have that in place. That's all I'm referring to.
You need to check and see how it's proved. I don't believe it was.
Okay? I know this question.
Very, very big scandal.
Scott, if you like to come forward, please.
Rachel Sussky, 1024 West Oak Pinion. I turned in a grant request for the RV park,
Uh-huh.
and the grant request came back, and I asked for all permits. And
Do you happen to have a copy of the grammar question in front of you?
I do,
Can I borrow a copy of it, please?
I got a copy, let me grab it out of the
You
car.
mind? Yeah.
I have it in an envelope,
You might.
all my grammar requests, somebody requested that my grammar request, but I'll give it to you. In the response,
Because we,
That-
before we address the response.
Want me to grab it?
If you don't mind.
okay,
Maria? Are you cooking tonight?
It was late, day for me, so
Did you bring any of it with us? With you for us to eat?
tomorrow I have to eat, pork people.
Oh, geez.
And,
I don't know about her. You're working on pastries right now, right?
I volunteer, I'm doing my externship there at the Farmstead
Okay.
and bakery.
All I know is she made some tortilla soup, right, that you guys didn't get any part of. And there's a reason you didn't get any part of it.
now just to clarify this, since things happen fast, I turned in another grammar request as
Hey,
of a
can I
week
see
ago,
the one you're
for the
referring to,
same,
please?
for the one I have here. Just give me a minute to kind of get through all these. And, I have the recent one. And it's gonna take me, no response, no response. I didn't put them in order. Yeah.
I wasn't in here.
Just give me a minute.
Mike Ackford? What's the question coming up for? I don't know, I only questioned it because it was before my time, so I went over and met with him, as soon as I need a copy of all your documentation. I filed and, had
They might not be in there too. Let me just look through all of them. Like I said, I've got the recent ones. The ones I sent
they
in
on the email or they have to.
were July 29th.
You have a copy for your email there. Anyway, well, we'll try to move forward, if we can't find it.
Yeah, I'll look through them all and see, but,
The other question about the grammar question, you filed with Norwood.
no, just the recent. I do have, one comment, and I brought this up before, that RV park, that's going in, they could use a little, dust control. It does get a little dusty when they're
They've
moving that
been
dirt.
filling their water tanks and
They've been
they
laying
do it
down a
like
lot
on
of
a
water.
daily basis.
Have they?
Yeah, they
They
do.
have, in their defense, they use that water truck all the time.
I also, in one of the grammar requests, just to let you know, it says, AB 1334, RV park next to Little Creek Station, has the RV park, been approved by the planning commission and town council was one of
Can I
my,
see that, please?
you can read my writing. And I know it takes time to do these grammar requests, and research and,
See, I'm not even remembering the project coming across our table, but you know, Jefferson Canyon was started way before I even got into office. And so I don't remember if that was during Moser's time when that was approved for their
yeah.
RV park.
That
I don't
was-
remember.
This is not the form we've been working on though. Where are you getting this form at, Richard?
Well, what I do is I print it off the website.
I understand. Where are you getting this at?
The same form I turn in is one I always turned in. I have no other form.
No, I'm asking you where you're getting this at.
I have copies of them.
Okay, I think we've updated our forms, if you don't mind updating those. But,
Yeah. I can pick them up on the internet. The new forms, they're accessible.
Yeah.
Richard, for spent a lot of money, he's got 5,000 copies.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll make sure we get into those balance of the week.
And then I gotta compliment you. I got my water bill and I picked up some papers the other day. And there is a discrepancy because you did charge me 50 cents on my water bill for picking up paperwork here. But you gotta remember, I had a 50-cent credit. Am I lying or dying?
We charge you 50 cents for what?
You charged me on my water bill 50 cents
He's
extra
looking at me, I know that.
for paperwork. I got 2 sheets and I paid it, right? He went out to the car to get the money and he didn't have but a $10 bill.
No,
And then I went all the way home, got 50
All right,
cents for
all
it
right.
and gave it back.
If
But
you
I
want-
gave him $1 and he owes me 50 cents,
Okay.
so I should have a plus
Okay.
50 cents.
You're
on my
doing well,
water
he owes
bill.
me 20, so.
I still want my 50 cents.
I said, well, my 20. So, yeah,
Okay,
thanks, Rich. So we'll get into those balances.
and I'll change my
I'll bring you.
form.
Yeah, please do.
Now, do I need to rewrite them and put
No.
them?
Okay, we'll go with that. Anybody else?
He did bring up one thought, Jefferson Canyon, needs to go, the way I understand it, according to the plan development ordinances, needs to go back to the planning commission for phase plan approval.
On what basis?
That's what it says in the plan development ordinance.
They submitted last week, phase 1.
Did they? Did it go to the planning?
Hasn't made it there yet.
Well, then I have to do a building permit.
We're not doing building permit.
You just said, somebody just said there was building, they're going to start building in 10 days or
6 weeks, he gave us.
if they get
notification.
approval.
Right. He gave us notification date that he was about 6 weeks out
Okay.
and ready to break ground.
Misunderstood. I thought I heard 10 days.
Okay, so he submitted his phase 1.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, we'll close the public hearing section. Need to call for a private work session.
You want to close that for that or?
I don't think we can. I think we can go. Yeah, we're gonna have just a 5 minute, guys. It won't take long.
Can't close it till we come back. I didn't do whatever it is, I didn't do it.
Yeah.
Yes, you did.
I was just in the virus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna be fine.
I just probably don't have from the, wasn't last year. I just paid my tire. Like, how do you guys do? I'm doing well. Coping with it, right? Yeah.
Coping?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I guess that's good, but yeah. Couple of it. Yeah. Okay, so when they asked me that question, what's this, they asked me about the guard, I was like, so nervous. Oh, yeah. Yeah. But it was not okay. Oh, sure, no reason to be nervous, though. Get involved.
Good. I'm not from many of these, but I don't understand why we can't discuss with the discussion company.
Yeah.
They will tell you it's a personnel issue,
Whether it is or it isn't.
whether it is or it isn't. That's the only thing they can discuss. That's fine. So I think maybe we ought to get a lighting that anytime they say something like that.
Well, maybe, so.
And then
there's
you
one
are
public
volunteer
hearing.
representative? No.
Yeah. Do you work?
It's like next part, or no?
Did you already work? You
No, I don't.
just hanging out?
I was-
There has to be.
With COVID, I know they're having those, the night Sundays.
Oh, yeah, I'm not.
I think we talked about it.
Performing and all. And so I've been, recording. So I recorded my first. Report. And it's up at the cell.
Yeah, cool.
Pretty nice one.
So I'm doing CD number 2 now.
I would have liked to have.
So it's all original.
You would have shut down.
They're very talented. Everybody likes all of them. I like, I know how this bird song. I have such bad memory when I'm tired. But yeah, I remember.
Is that what you did or what?
I think, so, I went down to Tucson, Arizona, recorded my song for the studio there. Because, there's a lot of studio musicians that are really good. So I hired 5 studio musicians to play. So it's a full orchestra, whole thing, fiddle and. I go real. The second CD that I'm going through now, you got more instruments that pedal steel. So we're having a good time. So I can put my artistic recording spot, but aspect of it. So the things are starting to open up.
Yeah.
Now I'm in the middle of this CD number 2 and I don't want to switch off and go back to performing.
One
One of those project doesn't get finished, right? So
Well,
I'm
it's a good challenge.
Definitely, that council work.
do you play?
No, I wish. I'm very shy, so I don't.
You're shy.
Serious?
Yeah.
I've never heard that.
Yeah. You know, anything you want to do.
Yeah,
Shy,
there's
music,
so many
folk
words.
music.
Oh, I mean, shy as far as like performing in front of people.
Oh, if you get to do that really quick.
I mean, you get to that.
Yeah, you can do that really quick. And the reason is because in general, people who they're mostly appreciative.
Really? No,
Cooking's a different thing.
I'm so afraid to make a mistake.
Yeah,
You know, you can't bring that up.
Yeah, because, you know, when you mess up the music, you should always share the song, you know, right on that you did. That's perfect. Yeah, it's perfect. You know, the way you get through it is you just keep the rhythm, you know, like that. But cooking is different if you have a bad taste.
Yeah, or if you burn something that.
Yeah, that's right.
You just carry on.
You just
Take it and.
plow right through it because, the only time that it becomes off is if you stop, the song will halt the rhythm. Then it becomes all off, but you just keep the swing moving, no matter if it's the right note or not, then.
You have to learn that, yeah. You'll get over that.
Well,
Because if you're, me, I'm a music person, I say that I shut down, I don't. I have to start from the beginning again and do it again.
well, it's a challenge because, you don't know if it's gonna work because you feel like inside of you that it doesn't work. But what actually gets transferred to somebody who's listening to you, it actually works quite well. So once you realize that there's a lot of latitude there, you make the mistake. And then what I discovered was that after I made my biggest mistake,
That's a good perspective.
I didn't die on stage, you know, so I go, okay, let's make a joke out of it. So you turned it into. Well, basically, it becomes just connecting. So, like right now, I'm not speaking perfectly with you, but I'm maintaining the same kind of a thing. So once you become accustomed to, that's just the way that it works. It's not that hard. It's a challenge to get to the point where you're okay with it, but once you're okay with it, you're gonna move on. Now you can't be, you know, a cat playing a piano. Right? It has to, you know, you have to kind of keep it in the pocket. But once you're already in the pocket, and you just kind of get used to the fact that that's the way that it is. And, you also get used to the fact that some days you can play a piece the best you ever played it and get no reaction. And there's some days you play that same piece the worst you've ever played it, and people are falling all over clapping. But yay! So there's a wild card there that you can't control. It's more or less what your audience is feeling the day that you're playing for them. So yeah, and everybody wakes up on different side of the bed, not feeling the same every day. So it becomes where you, for me, when I'm playing and I'm not getting much of a reaction, I just have compassion for my audience. It's not me. They just have a day where they're not into it. But yesterday I was floating up all over the place. Yeah, you know, for me, what I'm trying to do is, especially when it's hard, for me, it's harder to do when I'm playing somebody else's song. But if I'm playing a song that I've written, then I have a purpose behind what I wrote it for, and I'm trying to say that's going on. And there are some days that I can, and there's some days that I can't, in the fullest extent of what I want to do. And that's just the nature of life. So, you have to release the tendency to be too self-critical. And then you have to release the tendency of expecting the outcome. That no matter how well I play the piece, I'm going to accept how long it takes, rather than expecting them to lavish applause because I play it so well. So if you don't have this expectation of outcome, then you release all the pressure, and then you're just concentrating on song. It's like anything. It's like anything that's new. Like anything that's new. You're going to have ups and downs while you're going through it. Then you get to a point where, okay, you know, I can do it. And then, but if you get to the point where there's some people that, like a lot of the studio musicians that work on my TV, they don't perform. They're not comfortable performing comfortably, and you know, they never get used to the fact that, that there's a variable there that they have to be okay with, that we are very high professionals, also people at the studio. But at the studio, you can take another shot at it. You don't get that right performance. So it's a whole different dimension, you know, between the two environments. And so, you know, you as a person, you know, but you only find out about it. Try it. So that's kind of
I love food and some days how I feel.
Yeah, that's a very true thing because, even if you're sitting in a group where there's people there, whether they're paying attention to you or not, they have an impact on the environment that you're in. And there's some musicians that just block that out. I don't have the ability to do that. So I just try to figure out how to be comfortable with it. Carry on. And, an interesting thing about doing all that, or the discovery of it, is that I'm just one note away for it. And so that
Sorry. Let me Google it. Okay.
yeah. So if you hit a note or sing a note or pray, you never know. If that's the thing that's going to impact it so much that all of a sudden people start talking and they pay attention, they tune in, stuff like that. So I really enjoy those types of things. Just deal with it. So for me, it's I like to do that.
So how old were you when you started?
When I started playing a string instrument when I was about 18, and it was the guitar, and I played guitar until I was about 40. And then I saw this guy was playing in a bluegrass jam. I saw this guy with a little bitty beginner's guitar. After the jam was over, where'd you get that beginner's guitar from? He said, "No, it's also up there." But I really liked the sound of it, and I thought, I enjoyed the tone of that thing. And so I picked one up and started learning a second instrument, and I haven't played.
Wow.
It really just kind of took over.
Wow.
So I've been playing that since I was about 40. I'll tell you an interesting thing that happened to me. I used to travel a lot. The mandolin was take so small on an airplane. And then when I was waiting in between the flights, I would find the flight. And so one day, the lady came over, which is not unusual, and she sat beside me while I played with my guitar. She goes, "I heard this music all the way up to the side of the airport, and just had it follow all the way here." And she said, "I have to tell you this story." I said, "Okay, listen." She said, "I was watching like a PBS public television station program last night. It was a series about medicine. So this particular one was where they were connecting probes to a person's chest to measure the beats and the tone and the sound of the heart. And then they would be able to graph it and then also put it on speakers.
Yeah.
And then they would ask the person different types of questions to produce an emotion. And she said, when they asked the person a question that caused sadness, said that the music that came off on the harp was very dark and monotone. And she said, but then when they asked the person to recall a happy moment in their life, totally changed to this very light and happy tone. She says, when I heard your music across the airport, it was exactly the same tone as a heartbeat. So I just had to find out where this is coming from and tell you that. And I said, no, I really appreciate that, because I've often wondered why I took to the man when I've been playing for 40 years. And it does make me wonder.
How they play some of the time.
All the time.
Cool. I don't want to have that station. I don't like it.
Well,
I know.
everybody has to use that finding issue.
Well, one time I got one that was really funny.
I have to relate that.
You just have to find the, right instrument that resonates with you want to spend some time with it.
Like a sound part or like a ability, because I like to hear all the instruments, so I don't have any have to do because I don't.
Yeah.
The only thing that I started with, I was okay, but.
They use big instruments. All of a sudden you hit what they wanted. And, one of the most desired instruments that bands always look for a person to be able to play is the bass. So a bass is a very, very simple instrument. In the bluegrass world or acoustic world, it's a large violin shape and seen orchestra with people going. This is a big, 6 or 7 feet tall. It's got 4 big strings on it, and it's the lower register of notes. And so a bass is a pretty easy to play, easy instrument to play if you do time for it. So maybe bass.
Yeah.
Or it could be something like something simpler to play, hopefully, like
Like fiddle bells.
you could do the bells, the xylophone. Whatever thing. So what you are really after is trying to find something that and have a natural feeling for this, and I feel like I can make my own music. When you feel that way.
But you have to really have like a person who you look up to, or like teach you. Like you could have to teach you.
I taught myself, but the cool thing is that today people want to do.
Yeah.
And there are just tons and tons of people that will show you how to play. And, yeah, so if you're ever interested, like I have a bass and I have a guitar, I have an extra band. If you ever would think that you would like to play around, don't get a call, don't get one, take it out. Look at early.
I might take you up on that one. I'm gonna get down with my project.
Sure.
I want to make a living for myself to, give up over 20 years old. I'm gonna be 45. But the thing is, I'm going to school, I don't have time for
Right,
it.
yeah.
Sometimes we'll be-
Okay, well, whenever you're ready, we'll always go.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun to have them there. I will say that a mandolin is one of the more difficult instruments to learn.
Yeah, that's the, I would like to go,
I appreciate that.
And my project is a literature, not right away. I mean, maybe 5 years from now, I want to have people, maybe before, who knows, a lot of people, come over to my place Yeah, wow. Yeah,
That'd be cool.
yeah, something like that would be enjoyable.
Yeah.
Well, I know where you live.
Yeah.
I think it's like a corner, where Marty is.
Yeah, before you go down, smack down.
5 minutes.
No
kidding. And it's still going. I have to pause this.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Yeah, so, and you know, another interesting phase of